going on?
I'm just, it's already live. I'm just copying the link and sending it real quick. Okay. Just grab this real quick. All right. We're live and we're ready to roll. It's the recap episode of week 3. More crazy stuff. I feel like some of this, I feel like some players kind of came back. Like we saw a little bit of the normal people coming back to normal, right?
Somewhat. Some stuff is starting to stick again, but
yeah, it's still kind of crazy out there.
There's still some players that they're crazy outperforming. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, we could start with one of those games where some of these players are still crazy outperforming, one of them at least, and that is in the we'll go game by game here. The Chargers and the Chiefs were one of the early games, and Mike Williams continues to be a beast.
Yeah, he put up 33 points.
He continues to be what we've been waiting him to be.
Well, maybe not to this extreme, but yeah, he's doing really well. He put up 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards and I think 10 receptions.
Yeah.
So he did really, really well. And he's been doing that. So I was looking at his point totals. Week 1 and 2, he had like 22 points. And then this week he had 32 points. So I don't know how long he's going to be able to sustain it. I do think he's still going to be a really nice fantasy option. But I think he'll start to get closer to like the 15, 18 point range over the course of the season when everything kind of averages out. I think he's going to be, I don't want to call him fool's gold so much, but I think it's going to be something kind of like what Jacobs was last year. And even Aaron Jones to a certain point where like he was like the number 8 fantasy running back. Obviously I'm guessing here, but the point is I think Mike Williams is going to continue to stay in that top tier of receivers because of how well his first 3 games average out, but I think he's going to start to like plateau a bit, and I think he'll be closer to like the 10 to 15 receiver range as we go on through the season, which is still really
I think they're one of the teams that throw a lot. They throw a lot. They're in the block of teams that throws more than they run. So there's plenty of room to go around, at least to this point, because Keenan Allen is still getting a ton of targets as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Mike Williams is doing everything right now. Like he's catching and getting the touchdowns. The thing is that I worry about with Mike Williams more than anything is his ability to stay healthy. I think every season he's been in the league, he's been injured to some extent. So we'll see. I'm glad for him because I do like him. He's a really good player. So hopefully he keeps it up and gets himself a Pro Bowl berth this season.
Yeah, I agree. Also on the other side of the ball, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled again, but they stuck with him, and he actually put up a pretty good point total.
Yeah, he did really, really well. He looked good running too. Like he looked more confident.
Yes.
So he did really, really well. He found the end zone, so it was a really good game for him. On the other side of the coin for the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill. I mentioned this when we were talking about it. I feel like after the Super Bowl, teams kind of figured out how to cover him. Because if you look back at that first game with the Browns, that touchdown he had was on a broken play. And it just happened that the cornerback just over-pursued. And then obviously Tyreek was able to pivot and then just take it the other way because of his speed. But other than that, he didn't really do a lot. And he's been pretty disappointing for his draft position this year. He has not been a true receiver at all. Not even close.
I agree. I skipped on him, and I don't know whether it was injury or just, I felt like, man, after the year he had last year, if he could repeat it or whatever, but he's been down. I mean, you can't keep him down for too long. And he also had a little bit of like he was dealing with like a slight injury in the last game. hammy pull or something, or quad or something. So I don't know what it is, and it's also, like you said, figuring him out a little bit. But they've been able to cap him and the Chiefs. Mahomes I've been hearing this a lot lately in the media, and Mahomes playing kind of with his no-look passes and this, flashy kind of play.
A little too overconfident, maybe.
Yes, I think that's kind of catching up with them.
Yeah, it kind of feels. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it kind of feels too that teams are willing to sacrifice Kelsey's numbers over Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're thinking, well, Kelsey's going to get his regardless, but Tyreek Hill's a game breaker. He could really bust things open for us if we let him go free. Let's give Kelsey all the stuff underneath. That's kind of what it feels like. And if that is what it is, that's really key for the Chiefs.
Yeah, there's not much going on with the Chiefs other than those players, and
they made a desperate move and signed Josh Gordon.
Kelsey's definitely living up to that first round, pick.
Yeah. And then with Helaire, I'd still be cautious, even though he broke out. The Chargers have a really poor run defense. Like everybody is running through that defense right now, so be a little cautious with Helaire. I mean,
sell high maybe.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like if you can trade him high. But yeah, I would be a little cautious going into this next week because you don't really know if you're getting the full thing here. Somebody who I was down on but has been doing really well is Eckler.
Yes,
been really good. Yeah. So that game had a lot of fantasy implications all around. We talked about it being Justin Herbert's breakout game. Turned out to be exactly that.
Yeah, the Chiefs will do that to you. The Chiefs are the remedy for anyone who's having.
Yeah, I feel so too. Yeah, they are the remedy for a lot of teams. So maybe Miles Sanders breaks out.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll get to that in a little bit. The Cardinals and Jaguars, that was kind of a slow start. It looked like the trap game a little bit for the first half.
Yeah, it was kind of a disappointing game from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, James Robinson finally came through in this game. It looks like Urban Meyer finally let him
loose. Really well.
He did really well. And Meyer came out after the game. There was a quote. I think he said that he was really impressed and that they need to get him more involved. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
That's insane. He's been there and he proved himself last year. And Urban Meyer's barely realizing this now. That's stupid.
Yeah, better late than never. Hopefully he can keep it going for his fantasy owners, which is I'm one of them.
It's possible because they're playing the Bengals, and the Bengals put up a lot of points to Najee Harris this week. Kyler Murray, man, I had a feeling he was going to have a down game. He tends to do this once in a while. And that's why I don't think the Cardinals are a viable contender, because they tend to play down to poor competition a lot of the time. So kind of sucks. But Kyler Murray, even though he didn't have his best game, he still put up almost 20 points, which shows how good he really is.
Yeah, and with Hopkins injured, Kirk was the main beneficiary of that.
Kirk continues to impress this year as a nice little flex option.
Yeah, he showed up nicely, and Connor got 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Connor back from the dead.
Yep. So the guy was playing in my Yahoo league started Connor, and the reason he started Connor is because he's a former Steeler, and he benefited from that. So I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Again, not much to speak of on the Jaguar side besides James Robinson. I think Marvin Jones did okay in PPR. And
how about the Jaguars special teams with that? Pretty awesome.
Oh, that was super cool, man. 109-yard touchdown, tying the record on a missed kick. So
there was a stat that the Jaguars didn't put up any yards midway through the third quarter.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, you're playing your defenses against the Jaguars this year. So if you're streaming defenses, which most teams really are, you pick up somebody that's playing the Jaguars and you should be okay. And this week it's the Bengals. So go look for your Bengals defense. The next game is the Bears at the Browns. Jeez.
Man, this game was one of the worst. It was like a 3-year-old playing a Madden expert. Like, that's how bad it was.
Yeah, this was rough. There's not a lot to say. Justin Fields,
they didn't even produce 50 yards of offense. Like, that's disgusting. How does Matt Nagy still have a job? Like, if I was the GM or the owner, we would have had a long talk, because That was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I don't think he put Fields in a position with scheme to succeed. Like he didn't do anything that would have helped Fields succeed.
No, not at all. And I mean, this is what we were kind of anticipating. I was considering playing Fields. Really, thankfully, I didn't. And yeah, he got beat up.
It was an embarrassing game. Yeah, so I traded Allen Robinson, not because I don't believe in Allen Robinson, but I don't believe in that scheme. That scheme is so bad.
Yeah, so Fields got a little bit banged up in that game. On top of that, he just, he looked like a rookie. So they're talking about bringing Foles, and I actually think Foles might be better for Robinson if he plays.
Could be, but Jesus Christ, man. That team
I know that's a really bad team. It's not good at all. They're not scoring points. The Browns were able to trash them. On the Browns side, Kareem Hunt, it was his turn to shine, and he really looked good on the ground and through the air.
Yeah, he did really well, and Chubb didn't really do a whole lot in that game. OBJ looked okay coming back from injury. So that's positive going forward, probably for this week with Landry still out. But, I mean, there wasn't really any fantasy studs outside of the defense and Hunt on either side, especially on the Chicago side. Like, no one in Chicago did well.
No, yeah, maybe you start your defenses against Chicago as well. They looked really just bad.
Yeah, they were fucking terrible.
All right, the Washington football team against the Bills.
Here's another team that looked just so bad from the game.
Yeah, man, it sucks because, I think there were some high hopes for the Washington, and their defense is just I really thought
-8 points.
I thought they were going to be negative points. I thought they were going to be the top defense this year, and I was really wrong.
I feel like their success got to their head as a young team. And then they were just expecting people were going to think they were good, and they're getting their asses kicked because I think they're a little overconfident. On the offensive side, I mean, they didn't really have a shot. Like, Heineke's a good quarterback, but he needs his defense to balance him out so that he doesn't have to pass. That's why he's not a franchise quarterback. That's why he was the second option to Fitzpatrick, because he's not the guy that you want to throw 40 balls a game. He's the guy that you want to game manage and get the ball to McLaurin and then use the run game in the defense. Very classic.
Heineke's just a guy. He's just a guy.
Yeah. And he needs the defense's help. And if the defense is going to play like they've been playing, then Washington's going to be miserable. It's going to be
they've got to solve it. And I think the one thing we saw that they need to utilize more is Gibson. He had the highlight of the game with that 73-yard touchdown.
It's just that alone.
He's so fast, and he looked great. He did drop a pass right inside the 5 that could have been another touchdown, so that was a little ding. But besides that, you see why can be an electric player and why you want to get him involved in the passing game, of course, along with the running game more.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with all of that. And McLaurin, another guy that you need to get the ball to. I think once Curtis Samuel does come back off the IR, that's going to open things up a bit more for McLaurin as well, because he's a deep threat. I think you got to stick with McLaurin. I mean, he's a good option, especially in PPR, because even if he doesn't get the touchdowns, he'll still get those receptions in the yards, and he's at least good for 13 points plus going forward, I think.
You got to feed McLaurin, and I think that depending on the defense each week, and he's not going to be a world beater every week, depending on which defense they're playing. But like this week against the Falcons, I feel like hopefully he can get into the end zone.
He should be able to tear that. They should be able to destroy the Falcons top to bottom, man. Like, they're still a better team than the Falcons.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, hey, you might even want to play your defense. Maybe their defense gets off the schneid in this game.
Maybe this gives them the boost that they need.
Yeah, they have the weapons. They have the defensive personnel. Hopefully they can put it together. So on the Bills side, Josh Allen finally broke out.
In a
big way.
Emmanuel Sanders out of nowhere.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders looked really good in this game.
And then I think Zach Moss is the one who's establishing himself.
I think Zach Moss. Now we're talking about waiver wire additions in my 10-team league. I'm kind of looking to get Zach Moss. He's still out there, and I'm hoping I can snag him. I like him a lot. They use him more inside the red zone, and he still catches the ball too.
He's the guy. I think he's the guy. Like, I like Singletary, but I think Moss is the guy.
Yeah, I agree. I think they both have their own styles, but Moss is good. So not much else to bring up. Dawson Knox had a touchdown. He can be he's going to get you a touchdown every.
I think he's worth picking up. Right now, he's the number 8 fantasy tight end, and in the world of tight ends, I mean, I think that's someone you might want to roll with.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, the Colts and the Titans.
This was a very slow AFC South kind of game, and then Tennessee kind of took over in the later half. But even then, it was mostly, I want to say it was a running game because Julio Jones didn't do shit.
Julio didn't do anything. A.J. Brown, of course, left with an injury.
Yeah.
It was Derrick Henry again, who was looking, he's looking to me like if we redraft right now, I'm probably taking him number 1 overall.
I'm taking Cook number 1. Yes, he was injured this week, but I'm still taking Cook.
Fair. That's where we differ. Yeah, it was not, again, the Colts, oh gosh, Wentz just does not look good. I think, someone like Pittman should be doing a lot better than he is right now. I still like him.
Yeah, I like Pittman. He's a nice player, but you're right. They just don't have a quarterback option. They keep trying to play these Band-Aids at quarterback in Indy, and they need to understand they need to draft a quarterback. I understand Andrew Luck kind of left them hanging out to dry, but they need to draft a quarterback.
Yeah. Right now, sorry for the Jonathan Taylor, owners. I think he can get off the schneid still. I think he's too talented to.
Yeah. The thing is, he's getting the touches. He's just not getting the end zone. So I think it's frustrating, but I also think it's positive because like you said, it's there. It's just a matter of that one game. All he needs is that one game to break out, and I think from there on out, it's just smooth selling. So
yeah, and they paid Nyheim Hines. They paid Nyheim Hines a contract over the offseason, and they're utilizing him. And right now he's outscoring Taylor. So we'll see if that evens out. I don't think it can last. And you have this beast of a running back. So let's see if they can utilize him more.
Agreed.
So on the next game, we had the Saints and the Patriots. I went with the Patriots in this one, so I was surprised.
I was a little surprised, but again, it was the Saints defense that won that game. Just like the game against Green Bay, it was the Saints defense. It was not their offense at all. Everything that was set up was by their defense. They played really well. I have them. They are actually in one of my leagues, and they scored 19 points. I mean, they're going to carry the New Orleans Saints throughout the season. The way the defense goes is how the rest.
Yeah, their defense is really good. They're one of the better defenses out there fantasy-wise. And they handled Mac Jones, and there was really nothing they can do. There's just kind of a boring. The Patriots offense is kind of boring. So when they get into these situations where the defenses take over or they get outscored, they're not going to be able to keep up
because they don't have those playmakers.
Yeah, they don't have any playmakers.
They got money on 2 tight ends who haven't really done anything for them.
Yeah, that team's not going to go too far this year. But
and then in terms of the Saints, like Jameis Winston is still doing Jameis stuff. Like I don't know if you saw, but he just threw a ball up straight in the air, and Kellaway happened to come down with it, but it was a fucking terrible throw. It was
that was kind of a fluke. As far as players that came back to life, we saw it with Zeke, and we'll get to that in a bit. Kamara came back with the Saints.
Yeah, Kamara played really well. He's the focal point of that offense, and he should be. He wasn't in the last game, and I don't know if it was because like 7 coaches were out and they just were getting cute with it. But as long as Kamara stays the focal point of that offense and you're not having Jameis throw the ball around, the Saints can be a playoff contender for sure.
All right. On to the next game, the Falcons and the Giants. This one was kind of ugly.
It's fucking terrible. 2 of the worst teams in the league. Like I feel like these 2 teams might be worse than the Jaguars, even though the Jaguars haven't won a game. I feel like they're probably worse than the Jaguars.
Yeah, these are definitely the bottom of the barrel, and they're down there with the Jags and the Jets. It's just Stinkville, USA.
Yeah, so it was disappointing on a lot of aspects, but there was one bright spot. So Daniel Jones was somewhat disappointing. He didn't really do shit. And it was against a bad defense, so why he didn't do anything, I don't understand.
Yeah, and this is, of course, he's tearing it up for the first 2 games, and this is it's so perfect that he's going to just mess up against a really
worst team.
crappy defense. Exactly.
Yeah.
So man, I've been kind of hoping for him to do well, but he's not that good. And that offense with all the weapons they have, although there were a couple of injuries, I think Slayton and Sterling Shepard both got hurt and were out of the game. Barkley looked better. He didn't necessarily. Yeah, Barkley looked better. He didn't necessarily blow up, but I like the way his recovery is coming along.
Yeah, he did okay. For not having an explosive game, he still put up 20 points in PPR, which was pretty good.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah, and then in terms of the Falcons, same thing, dude. I was expecting Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley to have really good games. They didn't do shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the way they should have done.
Yeah, I think Ridley in PPR, what he's becoming this year, he's more of a WR2 than the WR1 you were hoping he would be.
Yeah. And I don't think it's his fault necessarily. It's just
no, and I think the defenses are obviously probably paying more attention to him now because he's the true one.
Terrible.
And it's also Matt Ryan's aging. He's not. I think his depth of target in this offense's philosophy has changed now, and they're not airing it out like. Last year, Ridley was getting some pretty deep throws, and I don't think he's had anything past 20 yards this year, or maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I don't know, man, but
Cordero Patterson
is benefiting from it.
He's the one he's really the guy that's getting the fantasy production.
And I think because Arthur Smith doesn't know what else to do with anyone.
Yeah, that team needs to go into rebuild mode soon.
Yeah, and they're like in the middle, like, well, we're rebuilding, but we think we're contending.
No, yeah, they're in denial. They're in rebuilders denial.
Yep, exactly.
And that's hurting everyone, including all the fantasy owners of all the
It's hurting my eyes.
All right, well, enough of that game, for crying out loud. Let's go to the Bengals and the Steelers.
Oh, another case of a really bad team and a team on the uprise. The Steelers need to be in rebuild mode because Big Ben is toast.
He's toast. They were showing some of his plays, and good grief, that interception was terrible.
He threw it right in his bread basket.
Yeah, he threw it right to him, and he's falling all over the place.
Thinking.
Dude, he's
trying to imitate Aaron Rodgers from Monday night with that laser pass, but literally there was no way that was going to get to Juju. That was such a bad pass.
Yeah, it's looking really bad out there. Bad. Now poor Mike Tomlin stuck out there trying to step up for his quarterback.
I do think Tomlin is going to get fired, not necessarily because he's a bad coach, but I think they just need a changing of the guard in that team altogether.
Man, that'd be interesting. That's an interesting call. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But I do think that Najee is just an insane PPR machine.
He's going to benefit because there's still a receiver. All the receivers outside of Claypool are injured. Well, the two main guys, obviously. So I do think Najee will benefit from that. And then their tight end, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Something with a P or
yeah, he's is he a rookie, right?
Yeah. So I think those two will benefit. Especially Najee, man.
Najee, and I do think I heard Deontay's probably supposed to. I think that him and Juju are supposed to practice this week. That's from what I heard today. So we'll see.
We'll find out tomorrow.
How about the Bengals side? Jamar Chase keeps to
Jamar Chase, dude. He is the one you got to look at.
What a good pickup for anyone that got him. He's looking like the rookie of the year so far.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I saw him catch a second pass. Chase and Mixon, that's it.
Chase and Mixon, yeah.
Even though he put up 3 touchdowns, he only threw for 176 passes. 76.
Yeah, and given the matchup, I think the Bengals defense is better than this is their best defense they've had in a while. They're putting pressure.
Yeah, the defense is pretty good, and that's a nice team on the rise, man. They could sneak into the playoffs. I'm not saying they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Yeah. Ravens and Lions, another kind of weird game here.
It was actually a fun game. Like the Lions, I will give them props. Like they play really hard.
You know what they are, yeah. And I heard that they were playing well for. Is it who's coaching? It's not Vrabel, is it? No, it's
their coach is Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell. I'm sorry, Dan. That they play hard for that coach.
He's a good coach. They just get bad breaks, man. Like I felt bad for them. Like they should have won that game.
No, I think for given like what everyone expected and like kind of what they're working with, their scheme is good, and they have.
They just need the players.
Running backs, yeah, they need more players. Hawkinson can't be the only one. They don't have any receivers, and Goff's actually not the worst quarterback.
He's not, but they do need to draft a QB.
Yes, they do.
But I will say this: they should have won that game. If you look, I don't know if you watched it, but the Ravens had a delay of game. Like the refs let it play on, and they should have
I didn't see that.
For that. So in the last play, very last play, after they get the first down on that 4th and 19 or whatever, Lamar's calling for the ball, and you see the play clock, and it literally goes down to 0, and he hikes it, and you're waiting for a flag. There is no flag.
I've seen that happen before. There's been some interesting reffing going on. Yeah. On the Ravens side, they handed the ball off to Tyson, I think 2 times, and he's been averaging like 6.4 yards per carry. I'm not sure what the hell the game plan was. I think that Harbaugh kind of overthought it or something.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know what the game plan was either, but I'll tell you what, if you had Hollywood Brown in your starting lineup, you were extremely pissed off.
Oh, I know. He dropped a big touchdown.
3 balls. 2 were touchdowns, and 1 was a long ball. He just dropped them, flat out dropped them.
Yeah, bad stuff. I mean, an off day for him. And they barely won on the Justin Tucker 66 yards.
Yeah, Tucker's the guy you're most excited about on that team.
Jeez.
Outside of Lamar. But I will say this, on Detroit's side, Swift continues.
Swift. I think he's like number 2 or 3 or 4 PPR running back right now. So
I do think he'll stay in the top 10 for running backs. I don't know if he'll stay number 2, but I think he stays in the top 10 for running backs.
No, he's been great. He looks awesome, and he's really turned out to be a bargain for anyone that drafted him in the 4th round. So kudos to all of you out there. The next game, oh man, here we go. The Jets and Broncos.
I didn't watch this game. I don't know if anyone watched this game.
I watched bits and pieces of it actually, and I had the Broncos. I like watching them right now because I have Javonte Williams, who actually played well, but he did have a fumble at the 1-yard line, which might cost him a little bit of playing time. But the defense is good. I played the defense against the Jets, and they goose-egged them.
But
right now the Broncos have played some bad teams. So
that's a huge thing. So it's hard to really judge any of their players based on that.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. They play the Ravens this week, so I think that'll be a bigger test.
Yeah, I think if Javonte does well against the Ravens, then I think maybe you start flexing him.
Yeah, maybe you can start flexing him. But Gordon still, he still looks good, and Gordon's not done by any means. So they might use them both still. And as far as their receivers go, they lost Hamler to a torn ACL.
Yeah, he's done.
He's done. So now they're down him and Judy. So I think Tim Patrick's someone you want to pick up this week. I think he's
Patrick and Sutton are the 2 guys for sure.
Yeah, they're both. They're obviously on. Patrick's on waiver wire list right now, so I would get him. I'm considering getting him in.
I would consider him. Definitely consider getting him.
And on the Jet side, I mean, fantasy wasteland, I would say. Yeah. Maybe Michael Carter eventually, right?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, that's a tough team. That's a real tough team.
Dolphins, Raiders, another exciting game by the Raiders. Another second overtime game for the Raiders. Second overtime
win. I'm a little surprised, man. I thought the Raiders were going to blow them out of the water.
No, I was almost having, flashbacks of last year's Dolphins game where Myles Gaskin took it to the house. That was it was scary to say the least, but the Raiders pulled it through, and Carr continues to spread the ball around.
Dude, Carr is killing it right now. Like he is throwing.
He's in the zone. He's in the total zone right now.
And props to anyone who started Barber. Did not expect that.
Damn, Peyton. I watched that entire game. Peyton Barber looked like a slasher out there. He
must have lost some weight because he was not like that.
He was looking awesome out there, running people over, catching the ball out of the backfield, taking it for chunk yardage. Kudos to Barber on a really good game. I don't think he's going to do that every time he gets the chance, but he looked really good out there.
Yeah, so I will say the one downfall of the Raiders spreading it out is the fact that Waller isn't getting the same amount of targets.
Yeah, and I'm someone who obviously took him in round 3. So it is hurting me, but as a Raider fan, I'm happy. I think that Waller is still a top 3 or 4 tight end for sure.
He's a top 3 or 4 tight end, like in real football, and then in terms of fantasy, maybe I don't know yet.
I think in fantasy he can still be 2 because the thing with Waller is that he's still, even though he's not going to get you like WR1 numbers, he's still going to get you better than whatever the tight ends are out there in the
Yeah, he's consistent in getting you points. Like he's still going to get you.
He's going to get you 6, 7, 8 points in standard, maybe 10, 11, 12, 13 in or 14 in PPR. So he's still going to do better than a lot of your other, scrap heap players out there, tight ends.
You better pick it up real quick.
On the Dolphins side, Brissett had a pretty gritty game out there. I didn't see too much from Gaskin, and Gaiseki had a pretty good game as well. Actually,
can't trust that guy, man.
No, Waddle did well PPR wise. A lot of targets, like 12 passes.
PPR wise, he did really well. He caught 11 balls for like 50 yards.
Yeah, really good game from Waddle, and so we'll see how it goes. But on the next game, here we go. The game of the week on Fox.
It really wasn't the game of the week, though.
No, let's talk about it. Rams and Buccaneers.
Yeah, Tampa got outclassed. They didn't do really well.
They didn't. I think the Rams from the first snap had this game just locked in. I wouldn't
say from the first snap, but I would say that they were the quicker of the two to get the pedal on the metal. Tampa Bay. I was arguing with another Bucs fan about this. They got pushed around, man. They got out. They were physically dominated.
It just felt like the Rams game. This whole game felt like they had this game,
The Rams wanted it. Like Tampa Bay, they just didn't look good at all.
And the Tampa Bay, I think you were telling me, it's just their cornerbacks are not. They're getting roasted.
Well, I'm not even worried about their cornerbacks because you expect that from like third, fifth string cornerbacks. My bigger concern is their pass rush. They were getting no pressure. They haven't got.
Yeah, and they have some world class talent too.
They haven't been getting pressure at all, and Devin White is getting pushed around like you wouldn't even know he's on the team.
Yeah, I think that they need to obviously turn that around, and I think that they will eventually.
I think last year got into their heads. They're a young defense, and I think they're feeding into what the media was saying about them, and they got a big head about it. Because you look at it, it's almost like two different teams. The offense is actually focused for the most part, but the defense is like not at all.
Yeah, they're totally lost. I think they're still obviously a top 5-6 team in the league right now because they put up big points, but yeah, they need to sharpen up the D.
Yep, they do. Chris Godwin continues to be consistent, and Mike Evans for second game in a row did really well. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, that's encouraging with AB out. Gronk got a little beat up in this game.
He did, man. He was getting. That's what I'm saying. Like they were pushing Tampa around, and Tampa wasn't doing anything. They were like scared about it. So like in their faces, almost like they were playing the Saints again.
No, for sure. On the Rams side, Cooper Kupp he's like the number one receiver.
Yeah,
he's such a good receiver. He's always been that guy that breaks tackles. He's and he's a really good route runner. He gets open. So
you have to think at some point he's going to come back down to earth. But at the same time, he's doing what Devontae Adams did last year.
Yeah, man. He's breaking. He's in some crazy territory right now.
Value pick right now.
Yeah. Oh, total. He's the hottest pick of the year so far. And what I was listening to the radio earlier, and they were talking about how him and Stafford they stay after practice and talk together and kind of
do everything together.
They
rapport. And it sucks because Robert Woods isn't getting the same numbers.
No, Woods isn't. Higbee looked good in this game.
He did.
They don't have really a rushing attack, so they're airing it out a lot. And I think that's just, man, it's so crazy that you get Stafford, who's a badass quarterback, and you finally see him with this kind of team.
So I wanted to draft him. I told you I wanted to draft him as my QB.
I have Rodgers in my 10 team, but in retrospect, I would have gone Stafford over Rodgers.
Yeah, I like Stafford. Like he's a quarterback that I actually do like a lot.
Yeah. Well, it was a good, good win for the Rams. They look like obviously like Super Bowl contenders right now. It's still early, but
surefire.
Yeah. All right. Oh man, this was disappointing. The Seahawks against the Vikings. What's up with the Seahawks, dude?
I told you, man. They're overrated, man. I had a feeling the Vikings were gonna win. So it wasn't Dalvin Cook. It was Madison. But I told you if they have the opportunity and they run all over them, it's over for the Seahawks. And that's exactly what happened.
And that's what it is. That's what I heard. I didn't get to watch a lot of this game, but I heard on the radio that they just kept Wilson watching on the sidelines for a lot of this game.
That's exactly the way to beat the Seahawks. Their defense is not what it was 10 years ago. So you can smash them in the mouth if you want to. that's why, kind of looking ahead, but that's why when they're going to play those San Francisco 49ers and even the Rams, they're not going to be able to keep up. They're not that skilled outside of Russell Wilson. He makes them go. Like, at the end of the day, if Russell Wilson has an off day, guess what? The rest of the team has an off day and they suck. So it's interesting because Russell Wilson controls everything on that team.
Yeah, and so going to that point, although it was not their best game, someone that we did see kind of come to life finally was DK Metcalf.
Yeah, Metcalf came to life a bit, and retrospect is, or the consequences of that is, Lockett fell back down to earth.
Yeah. So there's one kind of pin to fall. They're going to fluctuate, I think, week to week.
I think so, but I think Metcalf will always have the higher volume in numbers.
I think so too. Just the size, those slants that they throw to him are dangerous because he could take it up the field.
Yeah.
But Metcalf's still Metcalf. And Carson got into the end zone.
He did. He had a nice run. I will say that about Carson. He had a nice run, but Jefferson did really well.
I was just going to say Jefferson did. He's had back-to-back really good games. Yep. So these are guys that, if you were a little, it's still, again, this is freaking week 3, but if you were a little worried or bust potential, I think someone like DK and someone like Jefferson, you can definitely breathe aside. Yes. Yeah. Breathe easy on these guys. They're going to be just fine. They're studs. So interesting there. All right. Sunday night game, Packers Niners. Wow, man. So if anyone was worried about the Packers and that I was a little worried, I think you could breathe a sigh of relief here because
they didn't look good to start the game.
Yeah, that's true. They looked a little
off.
To
start the game, they didn't look very good, and then all of a sudden they started to play better, and then they won the game. Aaron Rodgers, I think this is the game that woke him up, honestly.
He did, and even his post, I'm still a little bit like, yeah, sure, man. You win the game, of course you're going to be happy, kind of a thing. But at least what he said in the post game sounded really cool. About football being, how can you not be romantic?
How can you not be romantic about it? Yeah, so we're starting to see Aaron Rodgers fall in love with the game again.
Dude, it's cool. It's kind of cool. And if you have him as your QB1. I do, and I'm starting to warm up more to it, and you know what? I can't bench Rodgers. This is freaking Aaron Rodgers I'm talking about here. So he's not putting up
gaudy numbers, but he's putting up consistent numbers.
That's the problem though in fantasy. Oh man, if you don't have I had a Lamar Jackson the year that he won the year that he won MVP, and he basically won me the league that year. So if you have a Josh Allen last year, then some of your positions can be not as hot. So, but this year, say you don't have a tight end or a receiver or a running back that are exploding every week, then you hope your quarterback can pick it up. So this year, I think Rodgers is not that quarterback that's going to explode every week. At least it doesn't look like it. And so you hope that you have a team that is going to be better than your quarterback. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And do you agree, or do you think Rodgers can still live up to the plus 20 points?
Well, I think there's two things to consider with Aaron Rodgers. So, to a certain extent, I don't think he's going to give you those gaudy numbers that he did last year. Obviously, that was his MVP year. And I think they're establishing the run a bit more than they did last year. Not that they didn't run it, but even more so this year. And I think it's because two things. Their offensive line is not healthy. So they're trying to keep Aaron Rodgers healthy by establishing the run, which keeps the defense honest, which means he can throw it. So he has more time to throw. So it's a little bit more balanced. So you're not going to see a lot of those opportunities for someone like a Devontae Adams because Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be able to sling it as much till maybe his line is healthy. But another thing about that with Aaron Rodgers is he is going to be good for at least 20 points a game with the ability to boom.
Yes, agreed.
So even if he's giving you that 20, you're like, all right, I can get the 20, but there's still that potential to boom. You're not with other quarterbacks who are like, well, fuck, he might bust. With Aaron Rodgers, it's plateau or boom. I think it's very rare.
Yes, yeah. I 100% agree with you. And I also think that with Rodgers, for the most part, he's a very turnover. He doesn't turn over turnover prone. He's efficient.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
And then what we saw in this last game too was a combination of good coaching because they were going up against a team with good pressure, and so they were getting the ball out quickly. And you were also seeing an actual, I think you were seeing was a better offensive line play than expected as well, with this kind of patchwork offensive line. So I'm encouraged by all of those things with the Packers. I think they do need to find, it was the Devontae show again. They need to get the other guys involved a little more, but
yeah, it's Devontae and then some Tunyon. And then
Tunyon and MBS sometimes.
They need to get, I say this kind of like sarcastically, but they need to get Cobb involved. Like they traded for the guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they can get him involved some way.
Yeah, do something with him. Even if he's like a red zone target or a possession receiver, you need to get him more involved.
Yeah.
So funny enough, I was going to trade for Rodgers early in that game, but then I waited because I wanted to see how he was going to react to being down the way they were. I was like, okay, let me see if Rodgers is the Rodgers we saw more against the Lions, or if it's the Rodgers we saw that got smashed by the Saints. Because if he's going to be playing like this against good defenses, then I don't want to trade for him. So I waited, and then I wanted to see, and the fact that he showed passion and he played out pretty well, even without not getting a lot of touchdowns, I was like, you know what? I think I need to trade for him. So we'll see if it pans out, but I do think Aaron Rodgers is more of that rare quarterback that has plateau boom as opposed to plateau bust.
Yeah, I mean, he's Rodgers. He's one of the best he's one of the best throwers ever. So
yeah, agreed.
Good game on the Niners side. If you took a flyer on Sermon, he at least got you a touchdown. I know there was a lot of running back.
He has no vision.
No, he's bad. I watched his tape. I watched his college tape. I watched his college tape, and I really strongly believe in college tape. And he, to me, was just one of the least. He didn't look as good as all of the other backs. Most of the other backs. And
it's telling too because Kyle Shanahan has a really good rapport with running backs and making every running back look amazing.
Yeah, and there's a reason that he was, that they
fourth on the depth chart.
Yeah, he was fourth on the depth chart. He was a healthy scratch, and now they were forced into using him. Mm-hmm. I don't want to trash on the guy too much, but he's just he's not a great running back.
You're not wrong. On the positive side, Ayuk finally got some.
Ayuk is starting to heat up. He got a touchdown.
So if you held on to him and didn't drop him, you might be in this one for something.
Yeah, they started using him in the reverse game again, as a running back. So he's getting and working in there. I think by mid-season to late season, if you have him, he can heat up more, and especially if Lance gets involved, I think he'll be a nice hold.
I say by week 6. We're going to see consistent numbers from that guy.
Yeah, it was good. Kittle performed again. Kittle was another guy that kind of stepped it up after an off week last week. But I think Kittle kind of gives you that every now and then.
Yeah, he'll have those duds and then he'll explode again.
He's also possibly a little injury prone because he got, I think, banged up in this with his ribs or something. A lot of rib injuries this year.
Yeah, weird, huh?
Yeah. All right, and then we had last night the Monday Night Football game, Cowboys hosting the Eagles.
That game was dominated by Dallas from
beginning. Dallas on both ends of the football.
Yeah, they just dominated every aspect of that.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb did not do as hot as I had anticipated. Maybe this is game plan.
This is what I was talking about. Remember we were talking about how with Dallas's game plan, it's going to be. And I said it mainly towards the running backs, but I think this is just going to be a consistent thing with Dallas is some games, some players are going to explode, and those players are not going to explode again in the next game. Because the Cooper didn't really do too much either. It was all mainly in the running game and the tight ends.
Running game, tight end. That was it. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
It was mostly Zeke. It was mostly Zeke.
Dude,
Zeke looked hot. Zeke was good.
Yep, he's the one guy, and that's exactly why I traded Tony Pollard because you're not going to get consistent numbers from the guy.
Good move on you, and yeah, you're right. It's the Zeke show. He showed you why he's still one. He's been one of the most durable backs in the league.
Yeah, but he was running hard and mean, angry runs.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good to see because I like Zeke, and he had a really nice game on the Eagles side. Look, I was texting you last night. It's just tough for me to trust any Eagles player right now. I think obviously if you have Sanders, you're going to play him because you have him as like an RB2 or flex or RB1.
I will say this in defense of the Eagles. They are a young team and they just played 2 better teams / defenses in the past 2 weeks, San Francisco and then Dallas. Whereas the first game they played the Falcons, so they play more defenses like that, which they play the Chiefs this week. I think you have to kind of be
you're right. And again, like with the Chiefs, the Chiefs are you play your fantasy offensive weapons against the Chiefs. Sanders, like I texted you last night, Sanders had a couple of really nice looking. He only ran it twice.
Yeah, but he looks so good.
One of them looked really nice, and he has a good hurdle to him. And my rule is if you have a good hurdle, you're a pretty damn good running back.
And then on the other thing, kind of going with the Eagles, is they got to put their players in positions to make plays. Like if you look at most of that game, Devontae Smith was covered by Diggs. Diggs is a lot bigger than him. They should have moved him around and put him in positions.
Man, Diggs was dominating last night.
So I think also coaching, it's a bad look on coaching where they didn't put Diggs in any positions to beat his man. Like Diggs is a big guy. He's gonna win against the smaller Smith if you put him one-on-one and you put him in positions where he's just running curl routes and slants, whereas you're not putting him in other positions. So that's part of it too. But I still like Smith going forward, and Sanders. I do think the Eagles' schedule will start to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah, and I like Goddard, by the way, too. Goddard looks good when he gets the ball in his hands.
Yeah. Ertz, man, that guy fell off hard.
He did, but he got a touchdown yesterday. So
yeah, but he also missed a lot of easy balls.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how they do. The Eagles are a weird team. Like you said, they're young and they have a new coach, so it's just a whole kind of growing pains. Speaking of Diggs, I'm going back to another Diggs. You made me think of Stephon Diggs and players that are – Stephon Diggs has not necessarily provided fantasy owners with like second or first round value. Really.
Yeah, we talked about this. Remember, he's not going to have regression, and the fact that he doesn't score touchdowns is a big
because we talked about this like last week or 2 weeks ago that he put up such crazy numbers last year. It's hard to repeat that. He's obviously a PPR guy. He's never going to be like the touchdown machine.
Yeah. So he's someone that I think a lot of people. Well, I don't know. I passed on him.
I had a choice between him and Hill, in your league, and I passed on both of them.
Got you a DK Metcalf.
Yeah, we'll see if that ends up panning out. But right now, I'm kind of liking it. I'm sure that Hill and Diggs are going to have blow up weeks, but. So that was the games. Good stuff. We have another week ahead of us. Well, before we get into that Thursday game, I have our results here from our week 3 football fantasy. It's written down. Our fantasy teams of the week, and I lost again. AJ 119.24 to 110.44.
Ciao.
And it was for AJ. It wasn't a big blow up. He just had consistent picks. Gibson 17, Kyler 18, Chubb 8, Pittman 13 still, Kittle 17. So he had, and then 16 for McManus. For me, it was Herbert with 30, but then besides that, it was, and Jamar Chase 22, Chris Carson 16. Everyone else gave me single digit points. Tyson did me real dirty. CeeDee Lamb, Jonathan Taylor, I thought was going to bust one out, and he still has not. So AJ 2-0 against me in our fantasy teams.
Hopefully we keep that going this week.
Yeah, we didn't do it. We haven't established a bet, but maybe I don't know. We'll see. One of us has to get a tattoo at the end of the year.
Maybe somebody got to eat something gross.
No, come on, dude. Okay. All right. Thursday this week we have another doozy. The Jaguars at the Bengals, the battle of the cats.
I think the Bengals are going to beat the shit out of the Jaguars.
I do too, and I think that I'm looking at the Bengals defense right now, but I was just reading that Awuzie and I think one of their safeties is injured, and they might not play in this game. So I don't know how much that would affect their defense, and if you would still go with the Bengals defense against
I think you kind of have to, playing against Lawrence. Like, he's throwing a lot of picks.
Yes, he's throwing a lot of picks, And
bad interceptions, like panicky interceptions, like not even.
Yeah, it could. It feels like those Thursday games could be sometimes trap games, but I don't know.
True, they can be, and I mean the Bengals are a young team, but I don't know, man. I think that Jamar Chase. I don't know if Jamar. Kind of speaking to the trap, maybe this is a game in the national spotlight where we don't see a lot of Jamar Chase. I think Mixon is primed to have a pretty nice game, though.
Yeah, Mixon should blow up here. This is a blow up spot for him.
Yep.
And Burrow, if you have like no options at QB and you have Burrow, I think you go with Burrow in this game too.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, if you don't have any options at QB, Burrow.
Yeah, and I stick. Again, we talked about this. If you have James Robinson, you're probably going to have to stick with him, and I think this is a good game to stick with him. And maybe
well, like what Najee Harris did against the Bengals.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer looks maybe getting his head out a little bit more out of his rear end there, but
maybe.
So yeah, give me the Bengals in this one. 27-14.
Okay, I'll be a little bit lower on the score. I think it'll be like 20-10.
All right, fair enough.
Two young teams, kind of boring. Nothing too exciting for this one.
All right. So So is there anything else you wanted to get into for the recap episode?
I think the biggest thing is just we're starting to see players kind of even out and kind of balance where they fall into the pegs that they fit into for the most part. Obviously, just like any fantasy year, you have those surprise players that just blow up and turn into something more than you expected. That's the beauty about fantasy. Sometimes you draft and you get lucky. But for the most part, a lot of those players that we were maybe panicking about are starting to settle into their position, like a Jefferson, Keenan Allen, of course. Chris Godwin, I think, is for real in terms of what you're going to get from him this year.
Yeah.
But I also think some players are still on cloud nine, and I think we're going to start to see them plateau into the coming weeks. Like Mike Williams can sustain that. I can see that happening where he's going to be able to sustain that going forward. I think Kupp is the exception. I think he is the Devontae Adams of this season, where he's going to get a lot of those points.
Yeah, Kupp is on his way to MVP. I mean, fantasy MVP like season if he keeps on this pace, and you're going to see his name on a lot of championship teams.
Yep, I think Kupp and Swift are two names that surprisingly should stay pretty consistent throughout the season.
Yeah. You want to give me a couple of buy low, sell high names maybe?
Well, I think right now after the performance he put in against the Chargers, you mentioned him. I think CEH is someone that you might want to sell high on right now.
Yeah, I agree.
He was somebody that I was trying to buy low on last week. That didn't happen, but I think he's somebody you might.
Yeah, I tried to buy low on him, I think, in a league or two, and
I think Allen Robinson is worth buying low on right now because I do think at some point his talent has to take over and he has to give you consistent.
I sort of agree with that. I think that is a good call. Yeah, I think you can definitely buy low on someone like Robinson. On the other hand, I don't know if Cordero Patterson can sustain this, so maybe you can sell high.
Yep, sell high on Cordero Patterson. I agree with that. I also think sell high on Mike Evans right now because he's put up two consistent good weeks, and I don't know if you'll be able to sustain that going forward. Not that he's not a great player, but just the way that Brady kind of peppers it around. I do think Gronkowski and Mike Evans are two players to sell high on right now.
Okay.
If you can get a Gronkowski for a Waller, someone's willing to make that trade.
Yeah, hopefully
they're that trade.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Do you try to get a trade for a McCaffrey?
I don't think anyone is giving up on McCaffrey.
No, yeah,
no.
You paid too high a price for him unless you're getting like a king's ransom.
You're still getting the numbers from him. He just got injured, like a freak injury. It wasn't even a contact hit. So I think if he was like putting up subpar numbers and then got hurt, then I would definitely see about trading him. But I think if you're going to trade for him, you're going to give up a lot. I still think that's the truth for him.
Fair enough. I think I agree with that. All right, man. Well, good stuff. And we shall see what happens with the Thursday game. Good luck to everybody on the waiver wire tonight.
Waiver wire. Ooh, can't wait to see how many players I don't get.
Yeah, I should get a good one because I'm 0-3 in Mark's league. So
So one thing, kind of,
fun.
while I have it in my head, one thing I like about the waiver wire is you do have those managers that tend to panic on certain players. So you end up getting players on the waiver wire you don't expect to be on there when they drop.
Oh yes, that's a great point. Especially, no, that's a good point to bring up. Especially in a 10-team league, it's fun to kind of wait. I wouldn't do this necessarily unless I didn't need anything. But if you wait until people drop some of these names, like, oh shit, he's on the waiver wire, and you don't make any moves, that throws you right on top as the next person. But the thing is, if you really need someone, then obviously go in.
That's what I was doing last year when I was number 1 in the league. I would wait to see what everybody was doing. It's like, oh shit, you know what? I'll pick him up.
No, I mean, look, I can almost, I'm not sure, but I could probably see AJ Brown being on the 10-team waiver.
Yeah, he has not lived up to anything.
First of all, he hasn't lived up, and now he's injured. But look, if it's only week 3, if the Titans improve, and maybe AJ Brown comes back or whatever, he could be someone you stash if you have the room. So,
but you have a lot of people that are going to be panicking on certain players.
No, for sure. It's interesting. Waiver wire is always interesting, and it's also an interesting way to put in your claims as well. So,
yep, it'll be fun.
The order you do, so it'll be fun. So, good luck to everyone with that, and we'll be back with the preview show more than likely on Saturday.
Yeah, maybe Friday because I'm gonna have a date night on Saturday.
Damn, girl.
So maybe Friday. We'll see.
All right, Friday or Saturday. All right, man. We'll talk later then.
All right, brother.
All right, peace out.
Later.